RBS is slashing jobs and shrinking its investment banking business. 3,500 jobs are to go as it aims to cut its balance sheet by up to £300 billion over the next 3 years. The bank, 83% owned by the UK government, says it's also getting out of cash equities, corporate broking, equity capital markets and its M&A businesses. Other headlines on Reuters this morning. Tesco suffers its worst Christmas for decades. The Britain's biggest retailer says it will reduce capital expenditure and expects minimal trading profit growth for the year. The ECB expected to stand pat later today after back-to-back rate cuts. The Bank of England also forecast to keep rates unchanged. Analysts see it holding fire on more QE until February. And investors risk-averse ahead of a key Spanish debt sale. Meanwhile, senior European bankers say talks about private sector creditors paying for part of a Greek bailout are not going well. Let's get out to Christian Schulz, senior economist at Berenberg Bank. Morning to you, Christian. What do you make of this talk now that the PSI discussions are not going well? And do you think this might prompt another shift?
Well, the PSI discussions are very important, as the Chancellor Merkel pointed out on Monday in her meeting with Sarkozy, because Greece is facing major repayment needs in March, on 20th of March actually. And before this, they need a second bailout package, which has been sort of agreed in terms last July already, but hasn't been implemented yet. To implement that and to vote on that in the German parliament, we need the PSI first. And it looks as though this is difficult to get the PSI.
How worrying, though, is it when we hear what we heard yesterday, that these talks are not going well?
Well, they will have to find a solution. If the PSI doesn't come up with the necessary money to get Greece to a sustainable position by 2020, the famous 120% of GDP by 2020, if the PSI is not sufficient, they need to come up with something else, because otherwise they would have to let Greece go bust. And that would, of course, trigger a new wave of the euro crisis, and that needs to be avoided.
And let's talk about what else they can come up with in the context of the ECB today. Do you agree with Fitch that the ECB needs to be more of an activist?
Yes, the ECB should do more. Of course, at the moment, the euro crisis seems to be calmer. The action of the ECB in December, the large operation, the 3-year operation, where they funneled almost 500 billion euros to the banks, has helped. But to really put an end to the crisis, they would need to do more. And what we would like the ECB to do is either funnel more money to the IMF, as they have done in December, but only 150 billion, or put a cap on spreads of compliant countries over German bonds, so that would stabilize prices in sovereign markets for good.
Okay, Christian, many thanks. Over in Asia, China's inflation rate has eased to a 15-month low. Here's Reuters' Tara Joseph in Hong Kong.
Hello, Axel. China's CPI coming in at 4.1% in December, and prices are down for the 6th month in a row. But there's still some concern about food prices, food costs starting to tick up again and holding above general inflation. Pork prices, that's the staple meat in China, are now one of the most closely watched indicators around the world. A fresh spike in pork prices could mean officials hold back on loosening monetary policy. Inflation in the past is China seen as a key threat to social stability. So looking ahead, analysts expect inflation to tick up slightly due to spending around the upcoming Chinese New Year. But overall, most do expect the current lull to encourage officials to keep loosening policy as a way to boost growth in China. Axel?
All right, Tara, many thanks. In world news, graphic images from a video posted on the internet that Reuters cannot as yet independently verify as authentic. It shows what appear to be US Marines urinating on the bodies of dead Taliban fighters. The Marine Corps says it will investigate fully and says the actions portrayed are not consistent with its core values. A Muslim civil rights group in the US has condemned the alleged desecration of the corpses. On Twitter, Warren Buffett trending on the Reuters.com site this morning. It seems the Oracle of Omaha is putting his money where his mouth is. On the back of an August New York Times piece calling for the rich to pay more taxes, Buffett has vowed to donate $1 to paying down the national debt for every dollar donated by a Republican in Congress. That is it for now. I'll leave you with our pick of the day, which comes from Reuters photographer Swan Parker. Children in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, stand in the schoolyard of the Academy for Peace and Justice to sing the national anthem. Today marks the 2-year anniversary of the earthquake, which killed 300,000 and left more than 1.5 million homeless. I'm Axel Threlfall. This is Reuters.